All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Heck, and JB, Positive Impact. In this episode, we have special guest, JB Driscoll. We cover topics that range from self-publishing, faith walk, leadership, side hustles, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Carol Burnett and Michael Altshuler. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, gentlemen, JB, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So just a little bit of background. If you guys checked out our episode with Earl Piner, JB and Earl had a connection, and I reached out to JB. Yeah, I saw that he was he self-published a couple of books. So we're here to hear your story, man. So those of us who do not know who you are and what you do, let us know.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a family affair. Earl's my brother-in-law, so he was all for continuing sharing the love. So I appreciate you guys reaching out and getting this started. So yeah, a little bit about me. First and foremost, I'm a follower of Jesus. I gave my life to Christ back in 2018, and so my faith and my relationship with the Lord over the years, it's become foundational for me. Everything I do is kind of a result of that. It's an act of appreciation for the love that God has for me and the love that I have for him. So, so that's kind of how I approach life in general. Professionally, I've been in supply chain for many years now, for about 7 years, going on 7 years. But I'm also, pretty plugged in with my church. Got a bunch of side hustles aside from that. I help out with the local youth ministry here in Nashville. So, just kind of also in a season of cleaning up personal finances. I know, being a late 20s single guy, just trying to set myself up for how I can be best, successful, how I can give back to the community in the future. But it kind of starts with me in my four walls. So getting my personal finances cleaned up, and to help me do that, I got a bunch of different side hustles, and one of which was self-publishing some children's books. So that's kind of how all that started.
I love it. All right. So let's just rewind back to 2018, man. So how did your faith walk begin? Did you, what was it, something you grew up in and then you just kind of fully committed, or grew up around and then you finally committed? Was it something, not around, and then, so explain your story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the church. Honestly, I come from a pretty strong Christian family. And so it had been, I've been around it, I've been in it, but it was never a heart posture for me. It was never a personal decision to go seek a relationship with Jesus. It was more of what some people call nominal, just going through the motions. I mean, I went to church because my mom made me. I'm going to be straight up when I was a kid. So went through high school and all that, kind of in those going through the motions. Getting into the college lifestyle, I leaned pretty heavily, honestly, on the party lifestyle and, living in sin. And it just, the gospel was not evident in my life whatsoever, or I didn't give the gospel credit for anything good in my life. And so that kind of seeped into my early professional career. Just kind of being the weekend warrior, having fun. Still leaning into that party lifestyle, and I felt so empty. That was just kind of I had a short empty tank, and would kind of get caught up with anxiety, depression, and things that I was pursuing. They just weren't filling me up, and so I kind of noticed that I was at the end of my rope, and that's kind of when I had a moment where I just I need there's got to be something more here. I got to get back in church. I got to seek something bigger than myself. And that kind of led me to finally get involved in a church, seeking Christian community for the first time in my life. I really never had friends that were strong believers and that weren't part of my inner circle. And so I joined a church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that I eventually got saved at. And that was really the first time that I was developing community in a Christian sense and having people that have a similar faith journey, similar belief systems in my corner, and we can kind of pour into each other. But since then, like I said, it's been a growing experience. The Lord stretched me in a lot of different ways. So just been a blessing since then.
I love it, man. Thank you for sharing that. It's very inspirational. We have tons of listeners, and all of us can obviously relate on a general scale. And I know someone who has a very similar story that hopefully they grab onto your coattails, listen to where you currently are, where you're heading. Very inspirational. But as we mentioned, we did talk about. So we're going to shift gears, and we did talk about self-publishing. So, how'd you get started in publishing a book, The Marvelous Mowgli, and what made you want to start and write a follow-up book titled Goodnight, Sweet Beast? So explain where it began. Were you always a writer? Did you just do it for a specific reason? And then explain the process.
Absolutely. So I've always, I feel like I've always loved writing in general. I've loved wordplay. Writing short stories, poems, songs that will probably never hear the light of day for a good reason. But, I just love to write. I've been a writer my whole life and journaling and things like that. So the Marvelous Mowgli actually originated as a Christmas gift for my niece, who's actually Earl's daughter. I call her Mowgli. I refer to her as Mowgli, just because, when she was a little toddler, she had, curly, messy hair and would run around in her underwear. She just reminded me of Mowgli from the Jungle Book. That's kind of how we came up with that nickname. That's kind of where it started. But then it just grew. And I think it was the year I got saved in 2018. I planned ahead like that summer. I'm like, you know what? I want to do something special for my niece that's going to last generations, something she's going to remember for the rest of her life. And just to show her how much her uncle loves her. And so I wrote her a story where she's the main character. She is a sweet little monkey that's got a heart of gold. And so I originally I wrote out the story, kind of mapped it out, bought a little blank picture book from Amazon, did all the original illustrations myself, and kind of created the scenes in this kind of scrapbook-like picture book. And so that was kind of that was an amazing gift for her, but for me as well, because on Christmas Day, I got to sit with her, read through that book, and it's a Dr. Seuss-y, rhymey kind of book, and so there's some sing-songy verses in there. But it was just such a blessing to be able to sit with her, to read the story, and just to see her face light up as she's like the main character of the book. And so that's kind of where the Marvelous Mowgli originated, its origin story. But looking at self-publication, that wasn't on the table. This was just a passion project, honestly. But in the lockdown of 2020 that it was, I was just looking for kind of a creative outlet. I think we all were to some degree during that time. I had talked with some friends that are in the creative space. They kind of suggested that I look into self-publication. I kind of talked about that I wrote that book for her as a Christmas gift, and I got the content. Let me see what avenues there are for publication. So in my research, I found that I could self-publish on Kindle Direct Publishing, and so that's kind of the avenue I went. And learning the whole way. I'm not a professional artist, and so like I said, I did all the original scenes myself. Well, I think they're pretty good, but they weren't, professional quality. So a good friend of mine from we did a study abroad together in college. She owns her own graphic design company. So I'm like, hey, I'd love to work with you and collaborate on this to see if, would you be interested in illustrating a children's book? I know you've been working with marketing material and large companies. Have you ever thought about illustrating a children's book? So she hopped right on board. Her name is Driscoll. I want to give her a shout out. She's pretty amazing, based out in California. But yeah, she did. We partnered on this book, and it was a really a great creative collaboration where she was able to help me out and get some illustrations done. And I think it looks amazing. It's great artwork, and it really brings the story alive. But yeah, it was a really awesome avenue to find that anybody with a story can kind of pursue self-publication with some low barriers to entry and just try to get their story out there. that's kind of how Marvelous Mowgli came to life. But since then, that kind of knocked the creative juices and got them flowing. And so I came up with a follow-up story, a bedtime story called Goodnight, Sweet Beast. Same in the rhymey, sing-songy fashion. Like I said, I love to rhyme. So that was a great, fun book to put out there. I have two big sisters, and aside from my Mowgli, I have another niece and two nephews. And so I just have that passion for my family and my sister's children, and getting to see them raise their kids is a huge blessing. So, taking that inspiration into these books is kind of fun.
I love it, man. I love it. So did you go the same route with Goodnight, Sweet Beast? Did you go with, you just bought a, one of those blank blank publication books, you drew it out, kind of sketched it all out yourself, and then went with the same illustrator? Was it the same process? Did you, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Mowgli, that was the Christmas gift. That was in like the scrapbook blank picture book, and that'll be with my niece Jordan for the rest of her life, hopefully. But with Marvelous Mowgli, when we started, we kind of went through the whole process, and Kindle Direct Publishing has a pretty self-explanatory guidelines for how to publish a book. So anybody with a manuscript and cover artwork under certain guidelines and measurements can upload their book and get it published within a couple weeks. So it's very quick and easy to get it done, and it goes through kind of a vetting process to make sure copyright isn't being infringed, and you're putting out content that's not problematic or anything. So, but yeah, really, the Marvelous Mowgli was in the publication process. It was the learning process. Like I said, neither of us, me or Mariska, had been in the publication game whatsoever, and so it was a lot of learning formatting, talking color schemes, and like I said, I'm a supply chain professional, and at that point, I was in commercial roofing. So I go, during the day, we're talking about metal coil inventory, and at night, I'm talking about the color of the bow in Mowgli's hair. So it's just like a variety of conversations to be had. Yeah, but a good way to shake it up. Like I said, a good creative outlet. But like I said, that first Mowgli book was a huge learning experience, and we kind of got it down to a template, so to speak. So when we went back to the drawing board with the new book, we had kind of the color scheme pinned down that Mariska would take with the artwork, but also just how the book flows, the page requirements, all the nitty-gritty details that are needed on the publisher side. And we kind of had already vetted out. And so it was a much more fluid process publishing the second book.
I love it. And were there any lessons that you learned from the first book that you applied to the first one, or to the second one? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Being kind of a two-person group, and kind of leading the charge on the sales effort. The first book, I didn't quite put as much attention behind marketing or getting the word out in advance, and so that was a really fun thing to explore the second time around. Contacting bloggers on children's books blogs, or some friends that are influencers on Instagram, or just getting my friends and family network involved on the front end to get the word out. I feel like was a huge learning curve on the second book publication, just trying to get in that sales marketing mentality, and get people on board, and just pushing awareness and socialization of the book. And so that was a great success, and we had a great campaign where I sent a bunch of copies to some close family friends, and we had a coordinated Instagram post on the same day. Recommended some hashtags, and we got a great showing for that, and a lot of awareness was spread in that unified effort. So yeah, a lot of great learnings, both on the formatting of the book, but also the socialization of it.
I love it. So do you have any future projects that are similar that you're working on? If not anything that you are, writing wise, that you're looking forward
writing
to?
Wise, yeah. Nothing formally in the works, but definitely have some stories being drafted, kind of in the Mowgli arc. We're going to try to continue building out that character, and I think she's got a lot of potential in her. And so I have a couple drafts in process for Mowgli stories. But yeah, just staying open to the idea of what else might be out there, and what else inspires me to write about. Has been kind of cool. I've played around the idea of getting out just a book of short stories and poems and stuff like that. So, cool. just trying to keep my eyes open and my ears to the ground to see, what inspires me and what I can do with the gifts the Lord's given me. So
that's awesome. Well, I mean, you could also obviously watch your niece grow up and develop more stories as you just follow that trend.
Hey. This girl's a character. She writes the stories herself. Like it's great. She's giving me grade A content. I got to pay for a college education down the road or something like that. She's helping me out.
That's awesome. So one thing I find absolutely amazing with children's book is obviously brevity, right? So for the attention span of a child is much shorter than that of an adult, but there's something about that's very powerful. And I feel that on a lot of books, movies, they miss it on, there's a lot of, how can I say this in a very constructive way, that it's very important to pay attention to length. It's very important to pay attention to how many pages or the length of them. Somebody was just telling me about a 3-hour movie that they watched, and it wasn't even, it didn't even lean towards their, liking, so to speak. I was like, wow, they invested a lot of time. So if you're taking on the user end, you're going to invest X amount of time. Let me make it worth it at least, right? And so, explain that kind of process, right? So with children's book, more than, like 95%, I guess, of children's books are much shorter and paid out, and bigger words and illustrations are there, and explain that and how that kind of plays into the storytelling.
Yeah, you hit it. It is very important, especially with like Mowgli. That book is kind of geared towards the first or second grader, and you're so right. Like their attention span is just non-existent. And so you got to keep them engaged and interacting the whole way through the story. And so that was kind of great about the collaborative process with Mariska is how do we not just make the formatting of the words? It can't just be a chunk of words here and then an illustration over here. The scenes, the illustrations, and the words, they got to mesh. You got to get a kid excited to read, right? You got to have a kid chasing words across the page as they're being, as a monkey is swinging across a vine. Like you got to make the book come alive to this young child. And so you're totally right. It's important to keep brevity as a point of the book, but also make it come alive with those exciting illustrations and how you can get creative with the formatting. I think that's definitely helpful.
I love it. And so where can folks purchase the books? I believe you can get these on Amazon. Is there any other location, or is that the best place?
Yeah, that's it. I'll just give a quick plug. This is a great resource for anybody that wants to get out and start self-publishing books. It's kind of a royalty structure. So, Kindle Direct Publishing is owned by Amazon. Like I said, anybody with a manuscript in the right format can upload and get it out there within 2 weeks. You can start selling books that you wrote. Wow. And they manage all the distribution. Any book that you put out there is Prime eligible, so people can get it within a couple days. I uploaded the final draft of Mowgli, and I got my first copy less than a week later. So it's just it's an amazing, efficient process. And so everything that you put out there is eligible for Amazon Prime, so you get that 2-day delivery. Who isn't a Prime member these days? So,
right.
It's a great tool, and like I said, the barriers to entry crazy low, and it's exciting to see your book come alive and get people involved to start leaving reviews or sharing it on their social media. It's just a blast. But yeah, so the books are both available on Amazon.com. I have some author copies here with me that I send out, as gifts and signed copies upon request. But the main hub for those books is on Amazon.
I love it. And do you have a separate social media page for your publications, or do they reach out to you directly? If either way, what are they?
Yeah, so I have a separate social media Instagram account called @JubbaBooks. That's JUBBABOOKS. My personal is @JubDriscoll. But yeah, all the information is there. The link to my author page is on both of those Instagram accounts. It'll take you right to the Amazon page and see all the publications, and hopefully more in the future. Get some more out there.
I love it. When me and you were going back and forth with some messages, obviously when we're reaching out to our guests, we just, is there any topics you want to discuss? And you requested, or you mentioned just a very curious one to me, which is community building. And I thought it was fascinating because what you're doing is foundational to building up a community, right? Going, towards the future, right? You're educating and providing wholesome material to the youth. So explain maybe a little connection, even if you never quote made the connection before, but what's the importance of community building and everyone pitching in. So for you, it might be children's books or writing. For someone else, it might be another method that they can help build the community, right? And that could be volunteering to be a firefighter. There's just a bunch of things we can do. But for, you pitching in, what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've seen that's been really awesome coming out of this whole endeavor. I've been able to reconnect with old friends, and I get invited to friends' houses that now have young children, and I can read a story to their son, to them. Like, that just brings me so much joy. That's just amazing. One really awesome story. So, a friend from college, she's now a first grade teacher at a local elementary school here in Nashville. And so we started chatting a little bit and reconnecting. And she's like, "Hey, I'd love for you." This is still during lockdown COVID times. And so she's like, "I'd love for you to be a part of our author series. So we're going through some books by local authors here in Nashville. We'd love for you to do a reading for our class." And so shout out Waverly Belmont and Miss Robertson. They invited me to virtually do a reading of The Marvelous Mowgli. They had me up on their big screen in their class, and I joined them and got to be able to walk them through the story. Just hearing all the giggles and smiles, that was a blessing, man. That was a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah, just one quick thing. Yeah, it was when the book first came out. I come from a very, very small town in Northern Virginia called Lovettsville. I'm sure not a lot of people in the world know where it's at. No stoplights. Like, it is a very tiny town. So, yeah. But it was cool when the book first came out. I was able to drop some copies off at the local library that I grew up going to. I lived in that neighborhood. I walked to the library, and so I brought a stack of books. Just like, hey, I'd love to give back to my old neighborhood, and I'd love to share these books with you guys if you'd be willing. And so that was kind of neat to be able to get back to my stomping ground.
I love that, man. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. And then when you're going through this, what was kind of the support? You said a couple of friends reached out and family members. What was some of the feedback and support that you're getting from friends and family while you're going through, whether it was the first book, obviously Jordan's parents? What was everyone's reaction to this?
The outpouring of love and support has been crazy. And it's been kind of cool to talk with friends and family and how they, most people close to me know that I'm, working in industry. The self-publication is not my main primary livelihood and source of income, but being able to pursue a side hustle and, get a little bit creative with how I spend my time and put my energy towards. It's been cool to see how, in some ways, I've inspired other people to kind of pursue those passion projects that may eventually turn into something bigger. And that's a huge encouragement to me. And I want to just share that encouragement with anybody else listening. Like, you don't have to wait. Like, you don't have to wait for the stars to align. Just like, get out there, start making mistakes. You got to fail fast and learn faster. Like, get in whatever you're passionate about, and just learn. Be open to learning. Be open to, like I said, making those mistakes. But you never know what the Lord's going to do with the outreach you have, with the relationships you come across, and just the gifts that He's given you. So it's been a cool blessing, and it's been amazing to see the outpouring of support, and people ask me, when's the next book coming out? So I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
I love it. So talk a little bit about some of the stages and how your faith walk has helped you throughout this entrepreneurial endeavor, right? So you mentioned you having your day job, right? And then you kind of have to transition at night / weekends or whatever, your spare time, let's just say, to passion project, right? And so we all know that when we go after that and we begin that journey of that passion project, that everything's not smooth, or everything doesn't work out the way we think it's going to, or we might, hit a roadblock along the way. Explain how overcoming those obstacles, how your faith walk allowed you to come over and become, a conqueror on the other end of that. Because a lot of times you find people, they enter into these passion projects and, they hit one or two roadblocks, get distracted, and, sooner than later, they kind of just put it by the wayside. It kind of just, dies on someone's desk, right? But you overcame. And I know a lot of times we don't necessarily talk about like the negative, so to speak, but it's keeping it real, right? It's part of the process. We have to overcome this. And I'm more looking for, mindset. So what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, man, we could spend some time. But in just talking a little bit about how my faith has influenced this side of things, and we'll get into a lot of that as we break it apart. But like I said, everything that I do, I'm imperfect at it, but I aim to have everything I do be an outpouring of the love that God has for me and who He's created me to be. But over the past several years, that's been a learning curve and figuring out who He actually created me to be and stepping into that identity. And he's been stretching me in a lot of ways, unanticipated and mostly unwanted, to be frank. And so looking at like my main professional career, time and time again over the past, I'd say 5 years, I'd find myself in a rut professionally. And as a guy, you guys might be able to relate, like it's so easy to seek a sense of identity from your job. Like when you meet somebody for the first time, what's like one of the first few questions you ask them? What do you do for a living?
Right.
What do you do for a job? Like what? And that there's an implied sense of, there's a weight associated with your job in relation to your identity. And so after going through those phases of being maybe unsatisfied at work, seeking joy through my main gig, my main job, I'd come up shorthanded, but I'm seeking, something, ultimate joy and satisfaction from a non-eternal thing. That my job is not the source of my fulfillment, my joy. That comes from, the Holy Spirit. When we're talking about peace, we're talking about joy. Those are fruits of the Spirit. Those aren't fruits of myself. Those aren't fruits of my job. That, a lot of job and, career things are circumstantial, and, good seasons will come, but they'll ebb and flow. You'll experience those roadblocks that you're mentioning. Those are inevitable. I think the past couple of years have convinced us that, disruptions and hurdles, they're guaranteed. Like they're not a question of if, but when. And in my faith walk, I've just had a hunger and a desire for truth and identity since giving my life to Christ. it's always kind of been there, but like since God becomes the main thing in my life, I now can rely on him as the source for that stability, for that sense of peace that surpasses all understanding. And now like I have that tangible source of where I'm seeking those things from. My walk with Jesus has also taught me a lot of peace and patience, and how I can't, like I said, they're fruits of the Spirit. They're not things I can conjure up on my own. But thinking of side hustles and passion projects, I try to approach that with patience, with peace. I know in today's day and age, we're all about the instant gratification. Let's do something big and shiny and flashy immediately. It's going to go viral. We're going to be successful. I love that dream. That's great. But frankly, it doesn't always work that way. And more than we want it to. And so it's kind of approaching, just being faithful, being a good steward of the gifts that God's given you. And, taking the time to plant those seeds, keep cultivating those skills, those gifts, and growing and developing. Being a lifelong learner, leaning on others in the field that you eventually want to be in, getting in proximity to those people and just soaking in wisdom is so critical. But just having that sense of peace and patience and letting something grow over time to eventually, and maybe it might always be a passion project, but maybe if you give it the right opportunity, have the right conversations and put the right love and work into it, you never know what's going to happen.
I love it. Can you talk a little bit about, since we're on the side hustle passion project topics, can you talk a little bit about focus and because there's a lot of distraction and we have a lot of ideas and we may think this is what we want to do, may want to do X, Y, and Z, but maybe tie in a little bit about how one can focus in on the selection of their project by just having that relationship with God, right? And praying about it and being patient on that selection process, but also taking action and being active, right? And some people, they just sit on an idea for years. You may have missed something there. I'm not sure, because everyone's walk is different, and and their relationship is different. But explain that. So someone who's trying to pick between 15 different things, and then we'll get into, is it okay to have multiple side hustles? But before we get there, selecting, let's just say, the handful out of 25 ideas someone might have right now.
Right. No, that's great. It's hard to keep, or hard to allow something you're passionate and grow if you keep it to yourself. And that kind of goes back to my intention on building community and, expanding, finding really close, intimate friendships that, have the same foundation that I do, that can speak in, like I invite people into my business. I like to be fully known with those I'm closest to and be fully transparent. And a lot of times you'd be shocked to see how you don't know you have a gift until someone else calls it out of you. Like being in those close relationships and getting involved with those people, they can speak that truth into you, and you're like, man, I never even thought of that. I can go pursue that now. So people might have desires to go in many different directions, but you can't do 12 to 15 things well. Like multitasking, as we do it all the time, we're just doing a bunch of things poorly. We're not doing one or two things really, really, really well. Our attention spread across a variety of things. Right. And so in doing that and having too many passion projects inside, you're not able to get as far ahead as you would like to if you just focus your time and energy towards just maybe one or two things. But all that to say, like, I definitely think the community and surrounding yourself with people that will be honest with you and straightforward with you, can speak into your business, you can be fully known by and know them. That is a huge thing to call out those gifts, like I said, that you may not even know you have, or you're questioning, and they can help pull that out of you and cultivate that into something a little bit more fruitful.
I love it. Okay, so let's two more topics that I want to change gears on, but relatively in the same area. There's just a lot going on in the world today, right? It seems like we're all moving in different directions, and talking about building the community, coming together, and obviously with Faith Walk. In this so-called chaotic times, what is the importance of leadership and people taking control and quote lead of situations and really controlling what they can control, right? So a lot of time I'm entering a lot of these conversations where people are getting overwhelmed or just almost driving themselves into more chaotic thoughts by just talking about the uncontrollables. But I guess what I want to drive down here is the importance of leadership, but also controlling what you can control.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you hit the nail on the head with, I think a lot of it comes down to those boundaries and identifying those boundaries of where do I begin and where do I end? Where's my ownership and the stake of these things? What are the controllables and uncontrollables, like you said? And I feel like that chaos can lead to a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. That's unnecessary. And I don't mean to downplay any sort of mental illness or, mental issues, but I feel like a lot of people, we live in such an anxious time. Everybody is worried but it's identifying those things that like, I have a stake in this and I can change the course of this, but so many of those other fears and anxieties, I have no control over. That's something I got to give to God and push over. I can't lose sleep over that. I'll tell a quick story. So I used to work at, Hanes Brands, the underwear company, in my first job. And being in supply chain, disruptions are inevitable. You probably heard at every store you go to, sorry, we're out of there.
Sure.
But being in supply chain and manufacturing environment, elastic waistbands were a very hard commodity to come by. We had a lot of barriers and boundaries. But I would lose sleep over elastic. I would be woken up in a cold sweat about, oh my gosh, are we getting the shipment? Oh my gosh, we're going to shut down it's just things that like we can have all our ducks in a row and then something completely outside of our control comes, like a pandemic, for example, and disrails everything. And what are we going to do? And that I go back to the faith walk, but that's why, my faith in Jesus is so foundational and so core to my being, because not if, but when those disruptions happen, I still have that. I still have my relationship with Jesus. That's unchangeable, and it's only growing from here on out. But to answer your question about leadership, totally true. It's a chaotic world to be in right now. And from what I've seen with great leaders in my past and what I strive to be in those that I'm leading is just removing confusion, right? To be a good leader, you remove confusion and hurdles out of the way. You work with your team, you work with those that are you're pouring into, and you're asking questions. You're being humble. You have a posture of humility with those people, and you're trying to see where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? How can I help serve you? Let me remove that confusion so you can get to where you want to be. I feel like removing confusion and humility are just vital characteristics of really impactful leaders.
I love it, man. Well said. Well said. I was having a conversation with someone over the weekend, this past weekend, about the legacy one leaves, and sometimes what we think our legacy is versus what people perceive us to be. It's so funny. Sometimes there's a disconnect. Hopefully there's not a major disconnect, and hopefully it's not complete opposite of what you think you're leaving behind, right? And so hopefully your goal is to leave a positive impact, right? And that that's the title of this show tonight. And everything we're talking about, you somehow twisted into having a very positive impact on your community, on your friends and family directly, right? These are the things we want people to do, right? These are the things we want people to model. And then we touched a little bit about leadership and removing confusion. I love that. Legacy, or what is the importance of leaving, first of all, having a current positive impact on your community and those around you, and then leave it when people think about, JB, when they think about that, how important is it for you that they think of that man had a positive impact on my life, right? And how that just gave me the chills, by the way. But because I'm very passionate about that for my own story, right? That when people think, and man, I don't want them thinking, man, what a knucklehead, he didn't have much of an impact, right? It was just like, oh wow, it was very underwhelming. But so not that you want to blow people's minds and be overly impressive and just be this egotistical thing. You know what I mean, right? Like having that positive impact, that's important for you, that you helped and you didn't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. The first thing that comes to my mind in Philippians, Paul says, "For me to live is Christ and to die is gain." No matter what happens to me, my name could go in the trash and no one could remember me. But as long as the name of Christ is proclaimed, that's a win. That's the goal. That's the aim. And so living into that, you're never going to see the full extent of the ripples of the decisions you make, both positive and negative. Like, we don't know the outer reaches of the decisions and the interactions that we have. But a great quote from C.S. Lewis that I read recently is, if you aim at heaven, you'll get earth thrown in, but if you aim at the earth, you'll get neither. And so with that mentality, it's like, like I said, whatever I'm doing, am I doing to the glory of God, or am I doing it to the glory of myself? Am I doing this to seem like a good person, or am I doing this because I love God and I want to give that same love to other people?
Love it.
It's pushing that eternal love out into the world that I can't make up on my own. Like, I need that source from the Holy Spirit. And so the legacy is great, but it's not the gospel. It's not what's going to last beyond the ages after this world is done. It's let me just continue to walk boldly, knowing that the Lord's leading my steps, and just trying to be obedient to the best of my abilities. Of course, I'm going to slip, I'm going to fall, I'm going to falter, but there's grace for that, But keeping those, it's kind of funny, the interactions that I have with people that I think are mild to no effect at all are sometimes the things that people come back, months or maybe a year later, be like, man, I really appreciate that conversation we had. That was an awesome conversation. Or like, I appreciate you did this for me. I'm like, I don't even remember doing that. Like, it's those little tiny things. And this is, said a lot. If you focus on the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. If you're walking in that wholehearted intention, legacy will happen, but it's not all about me. It's not all about me. So just being mindful of your decisions and why you're doing them. Are they for you, or are they something bigger than you?
I love it. So one question we'd like to ask all of our guests, if given the opportunity, is how do you manage the work-life balance? Is this something that you kind of just intertwine and you don't necessarily make a huge division between it, or is there a very, when you're home, you're just doing your thing, you don't focus too much about X, Y, and Z, and how do you manage all of it, right? So you have, as you said, the stressors of your 9 to 5, then there's the stressors of your personal life, then the stressors of the side hustles, and and it's you going through all of that, right? You're navigating through all of that. So explain to us how you personally, what works best for you. How do you balance all of that?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. It's pretty timely for my season of life right now. Like I mentioned, I'm in a season of extreme financial discipline. I'm working 3 jobs in addition to my main gig, and to pay off my student loans, to set my financial, personal finances up for success in the future. And so I'm the busiest I've ever been in my entire life. Aside from working, I'm pretty active in serving at my church. I lead a youth group, but still, like, I have a very fulfilled and very active social life and spiritual life with my small group. The excuse of, oh, I don't have time, that doesn't work anymore. It's, no, I didn't make time. Like, you will make time for the things that are a priority. It regardless of the season of life that you're in, like I said, I'm in the busiest season of life that I've been in my entire life. It's not going to get any more chill. Maybe in retirement, but like eventually I want to start a family and have kids, and like that's a whole nother level that I don't even know yet, but I can't wait for that to happen. So this is great preparation for that time, probably.
Right.
But in the midst of all that busyness, I still prioritize building, cultivating long-lasting and meaningful friendships that can pour into me, but I can pour into them. That reciprocation, and it's setting that intention. Be like, listen, this week I can't this week, but let's set some time aside in a week or two to get together, to grab some coffee, to catch up on life. It's such an important thing, because if you get stuck in the busyness and the grind, you're just going to get ground down to a nub, and you're not going to be able to have someone pull you out of that ditch. You need to have those people in your corner that can see you in a point of need, and to call that out and help fill you up. So yeah, setting that intentionality is absolutely key, and making sure that you can have a fulfilled work-life balance, or whatever that looks like.
I love it, man. So we touched on several topics. We hit some, very, very important points on some huge takeaways for all of our listeners. Was there something that's just sitting on your heart, or something that we didn't touch, a topic, maybe a comment that you're just thinking about now, or something you want to say earlier that you want to bring up now? Was there anything additional you want to use this platform for?
Yeah, I just, in talking with, it's in talking through all the extra side hustles and jobs and everything. It's just, I've learned such a sense of humility, and I know a lot of people might be thinking about getting some side hustles, or maybe what I want to dig into a passion project. Don't get caught up in that analysis paralysis. Like, step out boldly. Go do something that you're questioning. You might be unsure about as a side project. You never know where that's going to develop. But having that heart posture of humility, and being, like I said, that lifelong learner, a student, getting in the corner of people that are in the world you're trying to get into, and soaking in that wisdom. I think that's just has been transformative in my life. And so I encourage others to do that as well.
I love it. Sweet, man. So JB, one more time, how can folks get your publications? And then how can they connect with you if they wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal Instagram is at Driscoll, JUBBDRISCOLL. And all the publication and book information can be found on the Instagram account at Jubba Books, JUBBABOOKS. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to getting out some new projects in the future. Got some exciting things in the works.
Awesome, man. We appreciate it. So we like to wrap things up with quotes. And the first one is by Carol Burnett. When you have a dream, you've got to grab it and never let go. Second one by Michael Altshuler. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. Positive impact. In this episode, we have special guest JB Driscoll. We cover topics that range from self-publishing, faith walk, leadership, side hustles, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Carol Burnett and Michael Altshuler.
Awesome.
Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.